What is happening, guys? And welcome back to the channel. First things first, smash a like on the video and subscribe if you are new. And it is the final week of the European Championships, with the semi-finals taking place at Wembley on Tuesday and Wednesday evening to decide who will play in Sunday's showpiece event. And George, on Tuesday evening, kicking things off is Italy versus Spain. The Italians have done very well this tournament. Great running qualifying. Mancini's got them on a massive roll. I don't think they've lost for over 30 games now. And they put in a fantastic performance against the Belgians in the quarterfinals. And also Luis Enrique's Spain, who really no one was tipping whatsoever. There was a lot of question marks around the squad with the likes of Gerard Piqué and Sergio Ramos not being picked, but they've kind of quietly gone about their business, and they're in the last four on merit. How do you see this game going? Do you think it's as simple as the Italians are definitely going to win, or do you think the Spanish have got a chance?
No, look, the Spanish have definitely got a chance because Italy have been very similar to England in some respects, where they haven't been tested. I know they've had a couple of tight games, but in terms of a goal fest or having to kind of chase being behind, they haven't had to have that. So Italy will be favourites, no doubt, because of the way that they've played and the unbeaten run they've been on. But you've got to give credit to Spain. They were no one's tip to get this far. And from the games I've seen, they've probably played some of the most exciting games in the tournament. So I think, they've got some very experienced players in there. We obviously know a few. Azpilicueta, Morata seems to be firing just at the right time, even though he was getting heavily criticised a couple of games ago. So I think, again, just like our semi-final, there'll be goals in this one. I think both teams will be tested. At the moment, I would say Italy to go through, but I think Spain have definitely got a chance. There's no doubt about that.
How impressed have you been with the job that Roberto Mancini's done? Not just since he took the job over, but in this tournament as well. Considering this Italian side didn't even qualify for the last World Cup, he really has done a remarkable job. What impresses you most about what he's put together with this national side?
So first of all, Italy are one of those sides where you just have a soft spot for them. I mean, that when they won the 2006 World Cup against France, some of the players that you can reel off there, just unbelievable. And they've had some of the best players to ever grace the game. What's impressed me most about watching them is the collective press that they put on. I think that's, the player of the tournament for me has been Spinazzola. I think, and players like Locatelli who have just come out of nowhere, really. And some players that have just gone under the radar. Insigne has been a fantastic performance. I mean, what a goal that was in the last game against Belgium. And they've all just risen to the occasion. Yes, they've got some very experienced heads in there, and the likes of Bonucci and everyone else, but they've just got a very collective spirit of everyone doing their jobs and knowing their jobs. And I think that's what's impressed me most, that they just seem to all tick. And there's just that confidence when they've got the ball and haven't got the ball, that they know exactly what they're doing. So they've actually been my favourite team to watch in the tournament, even though a lot of people are saying they're quite conservative. Some of the goals they've scored have been outrageous.
Yeah, I think some of the football they've played has been outstanding. And you touched on the experience in the back line with the likes of Chiellini and Bonucci. When getting to this kind of business end of tournaments, where the pressure really ramps up, how important do you think having that experience and know-how in the centre-back area is going to help them?
Oh, it's just invaluable, because you have to have those types of players that have been there and done it. Yet they'll of course be nervous, because if they weren't nervous, they didn't care. But those players like Bonucci and Chiellini, I mean, they're absolute rocks at the back, aren't they? And they've seen every occasion. They've been in that position where they've lost big finals, but also won big finals. And you need that. And that's probably what was lacking in England team, and why we haven't advanced to those later stages, is because we just, when we're in a spot of trouble, we haven't got that player who's able to voice, let's keep going. And I've been there, and I've seen the heartache. They've all kind of been in it together. So for Italy, they can encourage the younger players, who obviously this is their first experience of getting deep into a tournament, but they've just got the perfect balance of kind of youth and experience in there that is all set up really for them to do well in this tournament also.
Yeah, definitely. I think, as you mentioned, that the back line, they've got a great goalkeeper. The defence is good. Spinazzola, unfortunately, did his Achilles in the last game against Belgium, so he'll be missing. That's going to be a big loss for them because he's been one of their players of the tournament. The balance in the midfield is so nice with the likes of Verratti, Jorginho, and Barella. Also, Locatelli playing his part as well. And then going forward, I mean, I know Immobile's not scored a lot of goals, but I liken it a little bit to Giroud in that World Cup with the French, a centre forward focal point that's not necessarily putting a lot of goals in, but is very important to that side. And then you've got the likes of Insigne and Chiesa either side who seem to do a lot of damage. But one player I wanted to focus on, George, how impressed have you been with the performances of Donnarumma in goal?
He seems to be like on people's minds for years and years and years. I remember talking about Donnarumma when he was, this was about 5-6 years ago. And I don't know how old he is now. I think he's in his early 20s. But
yeah, 22. He made his AC Milan debut at 16.
Yeah. So, and I mean, there was high talk about him even then. So he's going to be a world great. There's no doubt in my mind there. And I mean, he had big shoes to fill in one of the best goalkeepers and certainly my favourite goalkeeper all time, Gianluigi Buffon. So he's been impressive. He's a hell of a stature of a man, and he's very tall, very big. And for him, I mean, he's had a fantastic tournament, but with the clean sheets that they've had, and I can't speak highly enough of him. I mean, he's got such a long career ahead of him, and something like this so early on in his career, it shows the experienced head he's got on him.
Yeah, no, definitely. And just a quick word on the Spanish, George. Obviously, who do you see as their main threats? Really, obviously, the likes of Morata has come in for a lot of criticism in this tournament. But on his day, he can put the goals in and finish the chances. It just depends if he turns up. Who's impressed you on the Spanish side? I know they've conceded a few goals. I've been quite impressed with Pau Torres at centre half. Obviously, old heads in Azpilicueta. And then the midfield, obviously, with the likes of Busquets in there and young gun Pedri. Have Spain impressed you?
I wouldn't say impressed is the right word, because they have been quite frantic in this tournament. It's been a bit kind of chasing tails all tournament long, but they have seemed to have got the job done. And what they do so well that all Spanish teams do is that they, regardless of what's happening in the game, they seem to stay calm and just keep playing the football that they want to play, which is a possession style game, and not panic. And they haven't panicked all tournament. So what was the game which was 5-3, was that against Croatia, I believe. You know, an unbelievable game of football that, you know, Croatia were on the front foot and it has switched back, but they just never looked like they were out of control of that game. Morata, I think, has impressed me because of the criticism he got, and then all of a sudden, you know, put in 2 very good goals in the last game. So again, they're not to be underestimated. I mean, they're a team. If any team's been there and done it, it's the Spanish. So yes, they're in a different stage now, and probably their best teams as such are behind them. But again, like we said, they're there on merit, and they're just like everyone else, 2 good results away from winning another big tournament for them. So credit to them.
And just one last thing on Spain. How much of a disadvantage do you think it will be the fact that their last 16 tie and their quarter-final have both gone the distance in terms of extra time against Croatia, and obviously penalties as well against the Swiss? Do you think that could have an impact on them going into this game against Italy, who have obviously played an hour's less football?
Yeah, I mean, regardless of what we said about Ukraine earlier, there's no doubt that Sweden game where, you know, they got the card and it went to 120 minutes, there's no doubt that took something out of them, which they just weren't able to get the energy levels. And it'll be similar to Spain. I think that's where Italy have got the advantage. But I think one thing that Spain have that obviously Ukraine don't is that personnel, that their ability to bring in players that may not have had as many minutes that have got just as much quality. So yes, it's a factor, but I don't think it's going to harm them as much as, say, a team like Ukraine, who, you know, you clearly saw them struggle because they just hadn't had the personnel where they were able to switch it. So yes, it's a factor for sure, but I'm still very confident that this is going to be a big game of football.
And finally, mate, what's your score prediction going to be? Who's making the final?
So again, I think this is going to be a game with goals. I don't think Italy are going to be as solid at the back. I'd expect Spain to score. I'm going to go for a 2-1 to Italy. But yeah, I'll stick with that. It's 2-1 to Italy.
I'm going to go with a 3-2 to Italy. I think this will be a close game, a lot of goals, but I ultimately expect them to make the final. But yeah, guys, that's myself and George's thoughts on the first semi-final, Italy versus Spain. It should be a great occasion. And guys, leave your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe to the channel if you're new, and we'll catch you in the match previews later in the week.